watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into The Sports Source. Every December, I tell Jimmy Himes, look, if you want to go be with family or you have some travel thing to do during December, that's fine. But we're still going to get you on the elf thing. We're still going to get you on the Maca reindeer. So we have a packed show, packed house today. Let's just dive right into it. First segment brought to you by Phil Comple, Fine Homes and Land. Folks, we've shown you a lot of beautiful homes and properties that are represented by Phil and his team. But that doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire to buy or list your home with Phil Comple, Fine Homes and Land. They can show you beautiful homes like these and homes for families in every tax bracket. These are in Powell, Farragut, the North Shore area. Find the right home for you in Knox, Blount, Loudoun County, wherever, and here in East Tennessee. And Phil Comple and his team do a tremendous job of finding the perfect home for you and your family. And that's true whether you're in a tax bracket much bigger than mine, in my tax bracket, maybe a little less, say if you're living under a bridge. Phil Comple, Fine Homes and Land. All right, here's what we got coming up on today's show. It is jam-packed. A bowl surprise as Tennessee gets sent to Jacksonville, which we didn't say last week even as a possibility. Then we got Tennessee basketball we're going to discuss. Tennessee plays Butler this afternoon. Mark Pankratz will give you a complete scouting report that you can sit there and watch the game today and say, they're not doing what Mark said. SEC bowl games, or they are doing what Mark said. SEC bowl games, we'll look at that lineup because it's a good one. Butch Jones gets a pay raise. We'll take a look at where the Tennessee football staff's pay ranks nationally and inside the conference. Look at a stereotype of SEC versus Big Ten, and can Tennessee take advantage? And then finally, predictions for the week. Tennessee has 3 games in basketball this week. We'll talk about those coming up. Big show. Let me welcome in these fellows. We have Bob Hodge, freelance contributor to the Knoxville News Sentinel. We have Mike Strange, regular contributor to the Knoxville News Sentinel. We have Josh Ward, who of course does Sports 180 on Sports Radio WNML 99.1 990. And then right down there from Tennessee Golf Central and many other publications, we have Chuck Cavaleris. All right, gentlemen, as we said last week, tax slayer, man, it was clear. Nobody really saw that one coming. There was no murmur, not a hint of the tax slayer anywhere from either side, whereas you had Liberty was campaigning for Tennessee. Music City, there was some talk. Belk played around on Twitter with Tennessee fans, and Tennessee fans were campaigning for that. And then boom, the Vols, a bowl-hungry team, haven't been since 2010. They get this gig. You know, you joked last week that the SEC office making this selection, maybe they'd ship Tennessee to some bad place. Turns out the SEC office and Dave Hart deserve some credit for getting them a good bowl.
They do, and I think the message in this, to me at least, was this was a new process of divvying out the bowls, and maybe we didn't quite understand. You know, we knew it was a new process, but didn't quite understand how it would work.
Yeah, I mean, we even pointed that out last week that this is kind of going to be a first for everyone. And it is odd because you've got selection committee had to take 3 off the top, which helped Tennessee, and they did. And then you get the pool of 6 got divvied out. So it was a weird situation, but I think Tennessee fans have to be happy, Bob.
I think Tennessee fans ought to be ecstatic because, I mean, it's the old Gator Bowl. And if you'd have told fans going into the season that you've got a chance to go to the Gator Bowl, I think they'd have said, we'll take that. Excuse me. Then a 6-6 team getting to go to the Gator Bowl against an Iowa team that is, you know, it's a pretty decent Iowa team. I think Iowa always disappoints their fans a little bit. It seems like every season they start out people thinking they'll be here and they end up about right here.
And Kirk Ferentz somehow gets a raise out of it.
And somehow he gets a raise out of it. But I think it's a fantastic deal for Tennessee fans, especially when you consider 6-6. And I was never going to be happy with the Belk Bowl. As a Tennessee fan, I was not going to be happy with Belk. They're just didn't sound good, didn't like Birmingham. I just think that you came out smelling like a rose out of this whole thing.
Yeah, I thought it was more about the matchup. I might have been happy with the Belk Bowl if it had been Tennessee and Notre Dame. But what I think a lot of people, and for those fans that were logging on to the Liberty Bowl and getting their tickets, that would a matchup with Texas A&M, you would have probably been
West Virginia, you mean?
With West Virginia, you would have probably been a slight underdog. But with going to the tax slayer Gator Bowl, you're a slight favorite. And there are so many people I know that weren't going to go to the Liberty Bowl, but they will make plans to go to Jackson.
See, it's funny. I've got exactly the opposite. I knew a lot of people that were going to the Liberty Bowl that now they say they can't make it down to Florida.
Because it's farther.
Yeah, half a dozen one season.
I think what they did was you could either send Tennessee to Liberty and Texas A&M all the way to Jacksonville,
Right.
and that wasn't going to travel. So they said, okay, let's give them both at least travel in their direction. So Texas A&M to Memphis and Tennessee down to Jacksonville. Josh.
Yeah, I would say it also is just kind of the feeling that Tennessee fans have now. Going into the season, they would have said, you get us to 6-6, we'll feel good about where we are. Right. And they get to 6-6, so that feeling is back going to the postseason. But now, hey, we get back to the Gator Bowl. We get to it's January 2nd, but they feel like it's a New Year's Day bowl. So I think just Tennessee fans have been looking for a feeling of, hey, progress, things are going in the right direction. Then you get a kind of an unexpected surprise. They feel even better.
Yeah, and again, we'll talk about this a little later on in terms. Well, let's go ahead and do it now. We got some stats here on Iowa. Let's go ahead and look at this. 7-5, Tennessee 6-6, of course. You see scoring offense, Iowa a little bit better than Tennessee. Scoring defense, Tennessee literally 1/10 of a point better on terms of what they've given up per game this year. Rushing offense, Iowa runs for a lot more yards. Rushing defense, a little better than Tennessee's. Passing offense, they throw for more yards. Passing defense, better than Tennessee's. Turnover margin, Tennessee has the advantage there. But I don't know that those stats really tell the truth because the Big Ten stinks. I mean, and granted, Tennessee played in the SEC East, but their teams from the West were Ole Miss and Alabama. So I think when you look at that, you have to temper that a little bit. Whether or not they have a speed advantage, I want to discuss that later. But I kind of like this matchup. I mean, it doesn't mean Tennessee's going to win, but I would much prefer this to Tennessee-Louisville or Tennessee-West Virginia. As Chuck said, I think Iowa's a team from the Big Ten that, those Big Ten teams struggle against the SEC typically.
Well, I think what you've got to look at it as far as the matchup goes, the whole thing starts with me with Tennessee's offensive line. And Iowa's defensive line is not bad. I mean, it's not a terrible defensive line. So that's what concerns me about this is, once again, you've got Tennessee going against a decent defensive line.
They don't roll up sacks at least.
They don't roll up sacks, but they're pretty decent against the run.
Yep.
It just worries me a little bit, Tennessee's offensive line, and that's where I start before anything
else. And I'm looking
factors
forward that they could have the best left tackle in college football, or at least one of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of the highlights I saw, their cornerbacks were making plays. But in this type of matchup, you like it better. It's a better matchup for Tennessee.
Josh, one thing, Iowa's had trouble this year. The Big Ten doesn't have a lot of great quarterbacks, certainly not passing quarterbacks, but they've had issues every time they faced a mobile quarterback this year. Tennessee with Josh Dobbs runs for more yards, 78, almost 80 yards a game. So I think that would have to be an advantage in Tennessee's checkbook too.
Well, I think so, and with Tennessee lacking some playmakers because of injuries, Marquez North isn't out there, Josh Smith hasn't been out there for so long, but that's going to probably put more of a need on Josh Dobbs in the offense being able to make plays. They're limited at running back at least. So, yeah, I think that's an advantage. I would also say that Tennessee's probably more excited to be going to this Gator Bowl than Iowa is.
Jalen Hurd expected to be healthy. That's going to be key for Tennessee. One other thing that's key, Matt Crowder. Back at practice at center, we showed you the numbers a couple of weeks ago. The difference in Tennessee's offensive line when he was out for those last two games as opposed to the two games prior. Getting Matt Crowder back, solidifying that line at least to an extent. Getting it from a D grade to a C grade is a big step up. So that's another one to keep an eye on. When we come back, we're going to take a look at Tennessee basketball for a couple of segments. Plenty more bowl talk and football talk and pay raise talk to come. But next, what's Tennessee need to do? 3 things Tennessee needs to do to improve itself and to surprise some folks in the SEC this season. Come on back on the Sports Source.
Decks, dens, homes. Turn to Benedict Construction.